Welcome to another Law and Lately War video. Perhaps I should call it that. The War and Law video, episode 4. With the war dominating events for the last few weeks since it arrived on November the 29th, 3308, the story hasn't moved on a lot, partly due to the holidays and partly I think they've paced it to give us time to get our heads round the war. Now we've had a little bit of time to react, analyse and mobilise, it's good to get back to tying the war back into the story again. If you did the Christmas run for the Coors Toy Company, then on Thursday you got this message from Sandra. Thank you, Commander. Your selfless efforts this festive season helped to ensure we delivered gifts to so many children this year. As a thank you for completing so many deliveries, I've deposited 20 million credits into your account. I wish you every luck in the new year, Sandra. Essentially, you can look at it at getting 40 million for going to Hutton Orbital. But yeah, D2, Jin-ae is a big story this week. The only survivor of Azimuth's attempt to plug people into Thargoid scouts. She's left Tesreau's care to go on her own mission, saying she has unfinished business with Salvation. This has again brought up the whole Nemesis thing and the position of the megaship to the planet that I talked about it in the last video of the Azimuth saga. It's reopened speculation about whether FDev are going to take what appears to be an editing mistake and perhaps make a story from it after all. We'll have to see, but another point that has come up is that we don't need conspiracy theories about Salvation still being alive for Jin-ae to have unfinished business with him. For example, she could lead us to more of his research and experiments, or she could prove that the executives of Azimuth now, acting all innocent as if they had nothing to do with his work and being sneering and condescending towards anyone who even suggests it, methinks you doth protest too much. Perhaps she'll prove that they were not only complicit in it, but in it up to their necks. Speculation also continues about Jin-ae's role in future negotiations with the Thargoids, as the only person with any kind of insight into them. But with the war to face first, I think that's a long way off yet. What else she might reveal about Salvation and Azimuth could be fun though, so hopefully it won't be long before her story continues. Azimuth themselves think they can remove the limit on human-made anti-xeno weapons so you can have more than 4 at once on a ship. Players have called for the 4-weapon limit for Guardian and human anti-xeno weapons to be removed for a while now, and through Azimuth it seems at least one of those could be possible. Perhaps FDev thought lifting the limit would make it too easy, considering how skillful the players are already at killing Thargoids. The weapon limit hasn't stopped them finding extremely fast and efficient ways of wiping out thousands of Thargoids, but nevertheless it will be welcome if that limit gets lifted and makes more ships viable for AX combat. Even if they don't turn out to be better than the current meta ships, which seems unlikely, more variety is always good, especially if it's going to lead to things like new and interesting ship builds, and human AX weapons are not affected by maelstroms, they're not affected by other anti-Guardian technology like the Orthrus's EMP blast, so, maybe ships carrying a full complement of human AX weapons could find a little niche for themselves. It'll be interesting to see if that pans out. With the whole Azimuth thing and with D2 and memories of what Salvation did and Azimuth's desperate attempts to disassociate themselves from Salvation, this sounds like the kind of division that FDev likes to set up, so you'll have a split between people wanting Azimuth condemned and those claiming that the modified Guardian weapons and the removal of the weapon limits wouldn't have happened without them, which is perfectly in line with the idea of making your villains, if not sympathetic, then at least nebulous, by having them do a few good things occasionally. Professor Tesreau continues to campaign for the return of Aegis and is asking the superpowers to contribute. Well-meaning though this is, I can't help feeling this is a bad idea. Aegis was compromised before by superpower interference as they tried to force their own agendas, threatened to withdraw their funding, and eventually deserted them and blamed them for having no money and direction. Why would Aegis go through all that again? Personally, I think they should get independent funding, be beholden to nobody's agenda but their own, and tell the superpowers to stuff it. They've been as useful as a custard pie so far anyway. For people like me, who can't kill interceptors for toffee but can kill plenty of scouts with a vulture and a couple of turreted multicannons, the gimbaled version of the AX multicannon Class 3 is now out, thanks to the last of the community goals to get the new human AX weapons, originally designed and made by Aegis, and further developed in the last few community goals by the engineers Liz Ryder and Zachariah Nemo. Gimbaled AX multi-cannons do far more damage than the turreted ones, and with a bonus that you control your ammunition and when they fire. Some players might even take on interceptors with them, at least Cyclopses, but for others like me, these are long overdue and very nice, and they wreck scouts quickly and all day long. My little scout killing vulture now feels complete. Carrying regardless. On to the war then, and at the moment, if we have a great week, we as players, all the various groups working together on this system or that, in a great week we can maybe save 8 to 12 systems. That number may go up as we all become more knowledgeable and efficient, but whatever we do, we are currently losing more systems than we can save. From our own work and testing and data and observation, we know that the hardest invasion systems to clear are the ones in their last week. And the reason for this is very simple, because the activities are limited. There's only one damage station left, there's no deliveries, there's no AX to speak of because all the conflict zones are gone, and so all you can do is evacuate passengers and critically wounded. Those limited activities make the system harder to clear, even when you throw the numbers at it. And so all the various groups that are working around the war zone at the moment are slowly coming to the same conclusion as we did a short while ago, along with our allies and friends, that the easiest and fastest systems to save are those where the most activities can be done at once, with a focused effort. Those activities are rescues, which includes passengers and wounded, delivery missions, anti-Xeno combat, and selling directly to the commodity market. If we save 4 invasion or alert systems in their last week, there are still many more that we can't. And then this week, for the first time, we had a question answered that we've been asking ever since HIP 23716 got put into post-Thargoid recovery. Can a system be re-attacked after it has been saved? Muri Dugis, if that's even how you pronounce that, was a system that was saved in its first week, in the 3rd week of December, and although it got saved after HIP 23716, it wasn't as badly damaged, and so it only needed a week to recover, which it did. And then on Thursday just gone, exactly 1 week after that full recovery, the system is now in alert again, and once again in danger of being re-invaded. So that answers one question we had. When a system is fully recovered, does it then gain any kind of defence for repelling an invasion, any kind of bonus? And the answer so far seems to be no. But it could still be possible that when it does get invaded, that the second time round the invasion might be easier to clear. We don't know that. Or it could be the same again, we don't know that. But it's the first time that a system has been threatened twice. So we're all keeping an eye on that to see what happens there. Will it mean that HIP 23716 will fall under alert or invasion again as well? And what about all the other systems we save? Will it happen to them too, a week after they're fully recovered? I think it would be a bit mean for them to all come under alert again, all at once. So perhaps it only happens to a random selected 1 or 2 systems, in which case we could balance that by the 8 or more that we save each week, and eventually come to the point where we could get on top of those re-alerted systems as well and sort them out fast. That's why it's vital to establish which systems can be saved the quickest, in order to clear as many as we can in readiness. On top of all that, with our focus on inhabited systems, which is already more work than we can currently cope with, the Thargoids are casually taking over 50 or more systems a week that are uninhabited. 2 weeks ago, they controlled 245 systems. Last week, that rose to 329. And this week, it's 386. Because of that, I did think for a while that this war would play out until there were no more invasions or alerts and all the systems were either recovered or under Thargoid control, upon which the next stage of this war might begin to retake those systems or whatever. Muri Dooge being put into alert again throws doubt on that idea, but each system can still be thought of as a tug of war to get it to one state or the other, post-Thargoid recovery or Thargoid controlled. As always, we can only keep at it and see what it will take to deal with such a situation as it arises. It's still all very reactive, and the only real strategies being developed so far are to do with optimising our time and optimising our activities. On one of Burr's recent videos, he speculated about, well, lots of interesting things. Thargoids on foot, Thargoid fights in settlements, hive ships at the centre of the maelstroms which we would have to penetrate on foot to shut down their Guardian neutralising technology, and other exciting stuff like that, which all sounds fantastic and fun. But one comment he made especially caught my attention, and it was to do with the Thargoids being a permanent feature, at least for the foreseeable future. He described their permanent presence as being like a full-blown power play faction that people could fight or even support. I found the comparison particularly interesting because it mirrors our own thoughts about the Thargoid war machine. Since the war began, there have been people endlessly comparing it to the BGS, and I have disagreed with that point of view from the start. Whatever surface comparisons people think they're making, to me, are not representative of how those activities required by the Thargoid war machine actually work in practice. The way the war machine behaves is much more like power play. An observation that our resident data analyst Commander Lupus made a while ago was that the way the war machine is projected over the galaxy map is virtually copied from power play, and the missions, although they're missions you can find anywhere, are the kind of missions that power play focuses on: deliver X, kill Y, and so on. Plus, the power play mechanic is mostly automated, something that FDev have been proud about doing with the Thargoid AI. It reacts in real time, not once a day with the BGS tick. The number of uninhabited systems being occupied by Thargoids every week isn't due to factions jostling for invasion, but because of however the war machine works, with whatever its own criteria for invasion are. But that's about it for the moment. We'll be following this new war development and watching for how the story will develop along with it. It might be that we'll not be able to progress much until the story lets us, and hints for future community goals are already being seeded through the news. Our squad will be working hard and keeping an eye on developments until such time as some kind of breakthrough appears, but for the moment, we're doing the only thing we can do, the only thing any of us can do. The job in front of us. Thanks for watching.